GE on the porch. Today and again next Sunday, I want to speak with you about living tomorrow with Christ from the book of James, chapter 5 specifically. James is a book for practical Christian living. And the book essentially says that if our Christianity is not good and sufficient every day, then we must question our maturity in Christ. It's not a matter of us, you or me, being happy, or it's not a matter of our emotions. It is a matter of our maturity in Christ. In this past year, for example, were you defeated, unhappy, bitter, lazy, beat, mad? And do you want to, in the coming year, be more capable of handling your problems, have a better attitude about church, about family, about school, about the things that are going on in your life, whether it be work, church, or anything else? Do you want to be more joyous? You want to have more victory? And do you want to serve the Lord more ably? Well, it'll take a decision on your part. James gives us the guidelines for better Christian living in the days and the circumstances in which we live that are many times difficult. And I want us to look at those guidelines. He gives us 3 for today. James chapter 5, we begin with verses 7 and 8. And let me read those for you. Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord. Behold, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it, until he receive the early and latter rain. Be ye also patient. Establish your hearts, for the coming of the Lord draweth nigh. Now, the first thing that James tells us in these verses is that Christians are to live patiently. Now, patience has many faces, but let's deal with just 2 of those faces. First of all, it is being expectant. It is a command from the Lord that we expect good things from Him and expect victory in Him. And it's always for our good that we can expect things from the Lord, that God will work it all out. God gives His children the privilege of being expectant and of things that are good, and for Him to be in charge. Not only is patience expectant, it is also established. Patience is a sign that a Christian is established, mature, growing, grounded in Christ. And until you and until I learn to live patiently in Christ, our lives will be one of misery, doubt, conflict, worry, uneasiness, things that are not good. And when you learn Christian patience, you'll be surprised at the wonderful change it brings about in your life. So a Christian is to live patiently. Second of all, a Christian is to live peaceably. That's from verse 9. Grudge not one against another, brethren, lest you be condemned. Behold, the judge standeth before the door. That's what he says in verse 9. We are to live peaceably. And to have Christ's peace, we must understand, several things, but let's deal with 2 of those things. First of all, we must deal with the fact that others aren't perfect. You knew that, didn't you? Other people are not perfect. I know it. Other people are not perfect. And we're very aware of that. But we also must learn that we aren't perfect. You aren't perfect. And until we learn those 2 things, that other people are not perfect, we are not perfect, we cannot live peaceably with one another. Guilt is not always in them. Sometimes it is in us. And if you want peace in the coming years, live in the reality that no one here on this earth is perfect. Now, James tells us that we are to live patiently, we are to live peaceably. And we are to live, third, persistently. And by that, I mean with endurance. Let me read verses 10 and 11 of that chapter. Take my brethren, the prophets, who have spoken in the name of the Lord, for an example of suffering affliction and of patience. Behold, we count them happy which endure. Ye have heard of the patience of Job, Ye have seen the end of the Lord, that the Lord is very pitiful and of tender mercy. So we are to live persistently, and that is with endurance in Christ. James tells us that Job is our example. Job went some very difficult times. Job had some difficult thoughts in his head, but he persisted. He endured in the presence of God. Job is our example. He persisted despite loss, opposition, humiliation, misery, and sometimes when God was slow to answer him, or at least he thought he was. Job kept on keeping on. So Job is our example, and victory is our end in this matter of endurance. But we will only do so with persistence in Christ. Let me tell you one thing, and then we'll conclude. There is no excuse for quitting God. You cannot manufacture an excuse for quitting God. To conclude, let me ask you, do you want to live whatever tomorrows you have with Christ? Do you want to live successfully in Christ with peace and victory? I'm not going to tell you that everything's going to be rosy and that you're always going to be happy. It's not going to happen. But we, in order to have a mature Christian life and a life of joy and victory, we must live patiently, peaceably, and persistently with Jesus. And to do so, you've got to make a decision. And that decision is whether to live a life without joy and fulfillment or to let the Lord change your life. It's your decision. May God bless you this day in all things.